Hey everyone, Brandon here from TruckSafe Consulting. For years, the minimum age for commercial drivers wishing to operate in interstate commerce has been 21, but that'll soon be changing with the FMCSA's recent announcement of the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, which will allow certain 18 to 21-year-olds to operate larger vehicles in interstate commerce. So in this video, we're going to break down that new pilot program and discuss who will be eligible, how drivers and motor carriers can participate, and more. So stay tuned, and if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below to keep up to date on all of our new DOT-related content. So in a notice posted to the Federal Register on January 13th of 2022, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration offered details about its congressionally mandated driver apprenticeship pilot program, which will be known as the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program. Now, this program will open up in early 2022 and will open the door to certain 18 to 21-year-olds to operate commercial motor vehicles in interstate commerce. Again, under current rules, drivers must be at least 21 years old to be qualified to operate in interstate commerce. However, many states allow younger drivers to operate exclusively within their borders. Participants in the federal apprenticeship program will be authorized to operate in interstate commerce, assuming they comply with the standards set forth by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So here's what we know based on the FMCSA's notice. So first of all, the apprenticeship program will be open to 3,000 participating apprentices and around 1,000 participating motor carriers. Now, according to the agency, motor carriers that wish to participate will be required to complete an application, which we expect to be available on the FMCSA's website once the Office of Management and Budget approves its pending request to gather information. Now, the federal legislation that paved the way for this program limits participation to no more than 3,000 apprentices. The agency explains in its notice that additional apprentices will be needed to account for driver turnover. That said, the agency intends to process carrier applications and will approve only those carriers the agency believes have demonstrated sufficient safety management controls and which meet the following criteria. So first up, they must have the proper operating authority if required in US DOT registration. Then they must have at least the minimum levels of insurance that are required under the federal rules. They must not be a high or moderate risk motor carrier as determined by the agency. They must not have a conditional or unsatisfactory safety rating. They must not have any open enforcement actions, such as an imminent hazard operations out of service order or a pattern of safety violations within the previous 6 years. They must not have a crash rate above the national average, and they must not have driver or vehicle out of service rates above the national average. Carriers who don't meet this criteria are not able to participate in the program. And approval to participate will also be contingent on the carrier's agreement to comply with the program's monthly reporting requirements. Once approved, the carrier will be issued a letter by the FMCSA acknowledging their approval, and that approval will also be publicly announced on the FMCSA's website. Approved carriers can subsequently be removed from the program if they fail to meet the standards that we just discussed. According to the agency, it will prioritize approval of carriers to participate and continue based on these carriers' safety performance records over time, selecting only those with the highest or best relative performance. Participating carriers must also register an apprenticeship program with the Department of Labor. Now, the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program is a joint effort between the FMCSA and the Department of Labor. Accordingly, in addition to seeking approval from the FMCSA, interested carriers must also register their programs with the DOL in accordance with the regulations found at 29 CFR Part 29. According to the FMCSA, carriers don't have to have already registered with the DOL prior to completing an application with the FMCSA, but they must work on that process. Now, apprentices themselves must meet minimum standards to qualify and must be approved by the FMCSA. Now, once a carrier receives FMCSA approval to begin hiring apprentices, it must ensure that the apprentices meet the minimum qualifications applicable to regulated drivers. Drivers who have held more than one license, had a license suspended, revoked, or canceled, had a conviction for a violation of a traffic law other than parking arising in connection with any accident, or have been convicted of any of the following violations are not eligible to participate. The disqualifying violations are having been under the influence of alcohol as prescribed by state law, having been under the influence of a controlled substance, having had an alcohol concentration of 0.04 or greater while operating a commercial motor vehicle, having refused to take an alcohol test as required by a state, or having left the scene of a crash used a vehicle to commit a felony, driven a CMV while his or her CDL was revoked, suspended, or canceled, or he or she is disqualified from operating a commercial motor vehicle. Additional disqualifying offenses are having caused a fatality through the negligent operation of a commercial motor vehicle, including motor vehicle manslaughter, homicide, or negligent homicide, having had more than one conviction for any of the following violations in any type of motor vehicle, including driving recklessly as defined by state or local law or regulation, including offenses of driving a motor vehicle in willful or wanton disregard for the safety of the persons or property, having driven a commercial motor vehicle without the required CDL, having violated a state or local law or ordinance on a motor vehicle traffic control prohibiting texting while driving, or violating a state or local law or ordinance on motor vehicle traffic control restricting or prohibiting the use of a handheld mobile telephone while driving. So if at any time while participating in the pilot program, an apprentice is disqualified for a major offense, serious traffic violation, railroad highway grade crossing violation, or violation of an out-of-service order, he or she will be disqualified and removed from the program. So participating carriers must notify the FMCSA prior to hiring an apprentice, at which point the FMCSA will review the driver's safety performance history against its systems and will issue an exemption that's specific to that driver. Now, this exemption is important because it allows the driver to operate in interstate commerce while participating in the program despite being under 21 years old and having a K restriction or an intrastate only restriction on his or her CDL. Importantly, approved apprentices are not eligible to transport passengers other than an experienced driver, which we'll discuss in a minute, or hazardous materials, or to operate double or triple trailer combinations or cargo tank motor vehicles, even if they otherwise hold the necessary endorsements to do so. The agency will monitor carrier and driver performance throughout the pilot program and may take action to remove particular carriers and or drivers when warranted. So when it comes to the mechanics of the actual program, according to the underlying legislation and the FMCSA's notice, apprentices will have to complete 2 probationary periods under the direct supervision of an experienced driver. Now, an experienced driver is one who is at least 26 years old, holds a valid commercial driver's license, and has held one for the last 2 years, at least, and has at least 5 years worth of interstate commercial driving experience. Additionally, the experienced driver must not have had any of the following in the 2 years prior to serving as an experienced driver. Number 1, a preventable DOT recordable accident, or 2, pointed moving violations. Now, the first probationary period will be 120 hours of on-duty time, at least 80 of which must be driving in length, during which the motor carrier must evaluate the apprentice on the following: interstate, city traffic, rural 2-lane and evening driving, safety awareness, speed and space management, lane control, mirror scanning, right and left turns, and logging and complying with the rules relating to hours of service. The second probationary period will be 280 hours of on-duty time, at least 160 of which must be driving, during which the motor carrier will evaluate the apprentice on the following: backing and maneuvering in close quarters, pre-trip inspections, fueling procedures, weighing loads, weight distribution and sliding tandems, coupling and uncoupling procedures and trip planning, truck routes, map reading, navigation, and permits. So assuming the apprentice successfully completes both probationary periods, he or she will then be permitted to operate in interstate commerce unaccompanied by an experienced driver. Participating carriers must ensure that apprentice vehicles are equipped with certain commercial motor vehicle technologies. Specifically, according to the notice, during both probationary periods, motor carriers must ensure that each apprentice only drives a commercial motor vehicle that has an automatic manual or automatic transmission, an active braking collision mitigation system, a forward-facing video event capture system, and a governed speed of 65 miles per hour at the pedal and under adaptive cruise control. Additionally, the apprentice must be accompanied in the passenger seat of the commercial motor vehicle, as we said, by an experienced driver at all times during the probationary period. Now, as a condition to participating in the pilot program, motor carriers must agree to make monthly reports to the FMCSA covering the apprentice's driver activity. For example, vehicle miles traveled, number of duty hours, number of driving hours, off-duty time or breaks, safety outcomes such as crashes, violations, and safety critical events, and any additional supporting information like onboard monitoring systems or investigative reports from previous crashes. In addition, carriers will be required to notify the FMCSA within 24 hours of any injury or fatal crash involving an apprentice receiving an alcohol-related citation in any vehicle, an apprentice choosing to leave the pilot program, an apprentice leaving the carrier, or an apprentice failing a random or post-crash drug and alcohol test. Carriers must also obtain specific written consent from the participating drivers to release this type of information to the FMCSA. Now, if an apprentice is involved in a reportable, preventable crash or receives a point in moving violation while driving a commercial motor vehicle under the pilot program, the apprentice must undergo remediation and additional training until the apprentice can demonstrate, to the satisfaction of the motor carrier, competence in each of the performance benchmarks. The extent of remediation and additional training will be left to the discretion of the employing motor carrier. FMCSA will clarify the standards for remediation and additional training on its website once the agency begins accepting applications for the pilot program. So with all that said, motor carriers wishing to participate in the pilot program need to start taking steps to ensure that they meet the minimum qualification standards and will be ready to submit the required application once the FMCSA posts it on its website. Now, here at TruckSafe Consulting, we've developed a Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program compliance package for motor carriers containing important documents to help them implement such a program, such as a comprehensive policy, apprentice releases, instructor qualification forms, reporting spreadsheets, incident reports, assessment forms, and a coupon code for 15% off of our innovative online USDOT compliance courses through TruckSafe Academy, which are perfect for carriers to train new drivers on their regulatory obligations. So check out the compliance package at our website at trucksafeconsulting.com. And for an even more in-depth look at these types of regulatory topics, make sure you check out our comprehensive online regulatory courses over at trucksafeacademy.com and the detailed articles that we post regularly on our website at trucksafeconsulting.com. Also, be sure to follow us on our various social media pages for the latest highway transportation news and analysis. Thanks for watching.